All right, we can actually. It looks like we have 10 attendees so far. Okay. Oh, Sam Shrizano is coming on. Well, I'll get started saying things. Hi, everybody. I'm Bud Gibson. I'm the director of the Center for Digital Engagement at EMU, but maybe more relevant to this particular conversation, I'm the director of the Digital Summer Clinic, and that's what we're going to be speaking to you about. People are still piling in here, so we're going to give it maybe another 3 minutes before we get started. We've got a presentation. Well, it's a presentation format meant to just sort of structure the meeting, and we'll go through that. We will have plenty of time for questions, and I'll bring this up again. And in fact, feel free to interject questions as we go along, either using the Q&A or the chat functions. And I'll say that again in a minute too, but just so that we're not sitting here with dead air, I'm saying it now. So we're looking forward to a really good show. Um, so we'll just, we should probably have some kind of mood music or something like that for these things as folks pile in, or some sort of little video that plays, and we'll start in a minute or something like that. Um, Okay. Yeah, people are still coming in. I'll give it until 12:35 to just which is about 3 minutes from now. Just to give everybody who's going to come a chance to come. We have, you always get fewer people than actually sign up for these things. I think we had close to 40 sign up, and we're somewhere around the mid 20s now in terms of attendees. And so there we are. So as I think we're getting rolling, Nick, is your new role, is that now public knowledge?
It is not at the current moment,
Okay.
but it
Well
will
then,
be shortly.
okay, then just letting everybody know that Nick has a new role. So, but you'll be hearing about it shortly. And I guess I was getting advance word on that. Oh, so we have Lexi Morgan, I see, out in amongst the attendees. Lexi was an intern not so long ago, and was she an intern with you, Dave?
She was, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, now she's coming back as an attendee to
Oh,
maybe get some interns.
good.
Very okay. Okay. So Mohan Karta has mentioned that it may be taking people some time to find the Zoom link. I know I'm in that boat. I was actually making an emergency call to Kylie about 2 minutes before I logged on. Kylie is our sort of woman Friday there, who kind of figures out how to get everything done. And this will be recorded. So in fact, it's being recorded right now. So, and we're going to put it up on our YouTube channel, and then also our Facebook Live channel, so that folks will be able to see it. Well, I tell you what, I think there's no point in holding on. People can kind of join in the middle if need be. And I'll get started with sharing my screen and talk about what we're going to talk about today officially. Okay. So, welcome to the summer 2021 digital clinic. We call it the Digital Summer Clinic. We've been called by Digital Engagement Clinic in the past, but a couple of years, in fact, right before the pandemic, we officially rebranded to Digital Summer Clinic to give it that nice summery feel. We've been in existence now since 2015, so this is actually the seventh running because we ran one in 2015 also. And we're here to talk to companies about joining the clinic as people, as groups that would take on interns. And I was glad to see that we have clearly a couple of alumni companies in there, and we've got some alumni companies on our panel today to talk about what to expect. So, rules of the road. Okay, our goal is to have a coherent information session where people can still interact. So, this is where I'm going to say, ask your questions in Q&A and chat. We have Kylie Gilligan here, who is sort of our master of Zoom and getting the webinar to go. And we also have Eric Karp, who will be making sure that I stay on questions. Okay, so we will just answer those as we go along. We'll make it interactive. We've done a number of these before, and the Q&A and chat methods work great. We're recording this session to repost it to YouTube and our Facebook page. So, don't mention any deep, dark secrets, trade secrets, or whatnot. Let's keep it to the generic questions. Well, and, you're not going to mention any deep, dark secrets. And then we'll be able to make this available for people who weren't able to attend today. And we'll have that up within the day. Okay. So, what we're going to talk about today is what is this thing we call the clinic? We're going to see who the mentoring team is, and that's a big part of the clinic. And then we're going to get a word from Ann Arbor Spark. And so we have Jennifer Olmstead here joining us from Ann Arbor Spark. She's more on the non-startup company side, the corporate side, but we've interacted with Jennifer in the clinic, I mean, almost from the beginning. If not the beginning. I can't remember how long you've been here exactly, Jennifer, but you might have been there right at the beginning. And then we have Nick Jablonski, who I think many of you are familiar with, working over in entrepreneurial services, and has, from our perspective, Nick has had a broad role, but from our perspective, he has been intern paperwork wrangler and overall fix-it person on the Spark side. So we'll have them say a few words. Then we're going to go into a panel that we call the Clinic Experience, and that's going to have Dave Morin, CEO of Impelia. Dave, you probably know from a number of startups that he has been involved with over the years. He's also an investor in Mountain Pass, and a startup we worked with last year and have worked with in the past. And then he started off with Cielo Med Solutions. That's actually where I first got to know him. And then we have Don Verbrugge, CEO of Jotful. And Don has worked with the clinic now for at least 2 years. Has an interesting Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from University of Michigan, and then also an MBA from Columbia University. Jotful's an interesting startup that really plays a role in the web hosting space, but in a different way than you might think. They actually create the website for you in this sort of very streamlined process, and designed to kind of help you as a small to medium-sized business get the most you can out of your web presence without having to put in so much technical effort to manage it yourselves. And I'll let Don tell you more about that. Hopefully I haven't butchered it too much. And then we have Kylie Gilligan, soon to graduate, PR major Kylie Gilligan, on the trail of a couple of hot jobs. She was a summer 2020 intern with us, and she has also gone on to work, continue working not only with us as a field manager, but then also as a with TechStack, another startup that really focuses on IT services, and so she is going to be part of the mix. Sam Kinsler, listed on your screens as Samantha Kinsler, is going to be leading that panel, asking questions. And then Eric Harp is another field manager for the Center for Digital Engagement, is going to be making sure we get all the questions answered. And then I'll come back. I'll be here all the time, but I'll actually start talking again for some final words, and then we'll have a general Q&A for any questions that have not been addressed. And like I say, just feel free to throw those in, because I think sometimes it's much easier to answer questions in context versus coming back and somebody saying, remember when 20 minutes ago you said this or that. Okay, so this is me. And Kylie is going to be throwing out in the chat. We have a couple of sources of information for you, finding out more about the clinic. The first one is actually Bitly CDE company. Okay. And that is billed when you open it up. It's a public document. When you open it up, it's billed as our interview guide. And it gives kind of a brief 1.5-page history of the clinic and talks about the clinic experience. And then some questions that you might expect when you come down to the very last link that's showing on the screen, which is our to sign up for an interview. So overall, the way the process works is we're going to talk with you today. And if you're interested, we're going to ask you to come in for a half-hour conversation. And you can sign up for time slots at bit.ly DSC interviews. And Kylie's shooting those through chat. And then we'll have a chance to sit down and talk. And we'll talk shortly about what's going to be, what are likely to be the contents of that conversation. And then we have our student site that we're using to recruit intern candidates. Right now we have 260 applications, with applications closing on April 30th. And we'll be looking at company interviews starting at Thursday and Friday of next week, and then going over to Thursday and Friday of the following week. We have 40 slots available in those 4 days. So hopefully there's plenty of time for people to sign on. If you're getting stuck, we have in the past opened up additional interview slots the following week to just sort of handle people who can't find a time on those 2 days. To see what we're saying to students, just mentioned we had 260. That's at digitalsummer.clinic. We have testimonials of students and what their clinic experience was like. We had planned to add this year some testimonials from companies, but the pandemic kind of rammed a hole in those plans. But we'll be getting on that this summer. So we plan to add some. You'll see we have some interviews up there, and we plan to add some purely company interviews this coming summer. Okay, so what is the clinic? It is a 9-week 90-hour mentored internship. So you recall earlier I said, well, we've got these 5 mentors. Okay. Well, they come into play in the mentored part. And so, and 9-week, 90 hours says it's 10 hours a week. So it's a part-time internship. So in Spark, and Nick will have a chance to speak to this, they pick up the tab on the 90 hours for Spark Incubator clients. Okay, and so Nick has been sort of the leader of that effort over the past couple of years, and he'll be able to speak to that. Interns work on a project developed by the company as part of the company application process. So what we do is we set up that interview, we talk with you. things that we're looking for with the company is typically, do you have a product? Do you have customers? And they can be pilot customers of some sort, or they can be you full on got customers who are paying you fees and so on and so forth. But you got to have a product and you got to have customers. We look for we look for companies where at least one person is dedicated full time. And that way, so you're beyond the idea stage and you've got a committed management, and that those are really kind of the key criteria that we try and address in the interview. And there can be gray areas around that. We discuss those in the interview too, and kind of figure out how that works. And then the thing we figure out in the interview or start to sketch out in the interview are what are possible projects that our interns can work with you on. And then we'll wind up working with 24 companies, and we'll have 48 interns. Okay. So the interns are in two cohorts with 2 hours of mandatory meetings per week. Now, those meetings are outside of their 10-hour internship with the company. So work 10 hours with the companies, that's paid by Spark, go to our meetings for 2 hours. That's, you can think of that as being vaguely like class time. We have Lexi Morgan in the audience. She was actually an intern a couple of years ago. And then Sam Schwizano is in the audience too, not a previous intern, but has had a few interns work for her. And so I know some people have already had experience with that. And I saw some folks from last year. I think Dhruv is out there from B School Travel. It may be rebranded now. But 2 hours of mandatory meetings, cohort meeting with presentations to mentors. So you can think of this as being like a stand-up meeting that you might do with your development team or you might do on a daily basis. This is a little bit more than a stand-up meeting because some coaching is involved. We have a format that we want the presentations to go through. And then we have our mentors there providing feedback, spotting areas where the intern team might be going wrong. And so I mentioned 48 interns with 24 companies. We put them in teams of two. They present as a team, even though they may be working on different things. And we find that really helps because they're able to bounce things back and forth off of each other. Even though they're working with you, the company, in some sense, they're not alone in there. They've got a little cohort that is in the exact same shoes that they are, that they can chat with. Then each week we have an all hands meeting, and we typically do that on Thursday nights. And if we get lucky enough to, at some stage in the summer, be able to have full on face to face meetings, then on Thursday nights, we'll do it with pizza and pop at some location to be decided. But we've been doing it virtually last year, and we'll start off virtually, I'm certain, this year. And we bring in various kinds of outside speakers. And so they might be somebody like Dave Morin or Don Verbrugge, or a panel of startup founders. They might be some folks from Detroit who are working in advertising agencies or have various kinds of startups in Detroit. So that's the all hands meeting is designed to be a networking event and also help with career guidance for the interns. And, as I mentioned in the last bullet, we anticipate that we will start on a purely remote basis. We actually have the plan to carry out the whole summer remotely, if need be, and, kind of more or less expect that, given where things stand now, with hope that, we can get together face to face by some stage in the summer. Okay, now, the big question that we are trying to answer as we go through this process of figuring out which companies to work with is that, can we come up with a concrete set of projects. And we like something where we have an idea of what a good outcome would be, and where clinic interns can provide value to your company. The goal is to make this a win win. The interns get a great professional working experience, and you get something that works for you coming out of this. That's where magic happens, and it's what we're striving for in all of this. Okay. Now I mentioned we have these mentors. I'm on the mentoring team. We have Eric Wertman, senior account executive at Google. Eric participated actually in a class I used to teach in the summer, which was the precursor of the clinic. We worked with nonprofits, and Eric was actually managing Google Ads for them. And he worked at a number of agencies and then has been working at Google and Arbor now for 5 years. Joined the mentoring team last year, has been an incredible help with students, helping them figure out, first off, how to figure out how to deal with the ambiguity that you get when you're working with a small company, because Eric had a lot of experience working with small companies and sort of figuring out how to prioritize. Then we have Jarrell McCree, who is actually a partner manager at Pinterest in Detroit. And basically, that means that he is now a high level engagement manager for Pinterest advertising clients in Detroit. And Jarrell has a similar background to Eric. In fact, he kind of went through the same experience with me, uh, maybe 1 to 2 years after Eric, and then ultimately went to join the advertising agency where Eric was working, and they've stayed in touch over the years. Jarrell is very involved in his church's youth ministry, and which is a great thing because he has had a lot of experience mentoring youths, and we've he's just joining us this year. Although we've had him participate in the clinic in past years, and he also exhibits similar qualities to Eric in terms of giving people guidance, figuring out, you know, how to connect with the folks you're working with, whether they be your bosses, whether they be potentially folks you're trying to sell to. Jarrell does a lot of sales. Then we have attending in the audience today Jamie Ward, professor of PR. And Jamie is actually the person who got Kylie involved in the internship. And she is the source of many of our PR and communication students. And then we have Sufjan Krunfla. Many people just call him Dr. Q. And he is a supply chain management professor. And also, I think, Dave, if I recall correctly, he um, was moderating a panel that you were on in the past couple of years. Yep. And so Sufjan is currently serving as interim department head in marketing at Eastern. And so at these are the people who are kind of mentoring interns as they try to figure out how to succeed in their internship with you. And so, and I you will probably be getting opportunities to interact with all of us as the clinic goes on. Okay, so I will now turn it over to a word from Ann Arbor Spark, and I'll leave it to Nick and Jennifer.
Yeah, I'll go first, just short and sweet. Thanks to all the companies for participating. I see a good list of returning companies and new companies. So to the new companies, you're going to join a great alumni group if you participate in this program. We've had over 80 different companies participate in this program. Also, we have some good stats that interns stay later on. We've seen that our companies who have liked their interns and hired them later on, which we like to see. And also by you participating in this internship program, you're helping these students stay in Michigan because they're seeing that they're getting jobs, getting experience in Michigan and able to stay in Michigan, one of the goals of the program. So thanks for participating, and I'll give it over to Nick.
Sure. My name is Nick Jablonski, and I'm with the Entrepreneurial Services Department data analyst position, where I work hand in hand with Bud and also the individual interns throughout this process of onboarding each intern and each company that is approved after Bud's initial outreach with each company and internship as well. And just to back what Jennifer already mentioned of the retention with these students with these companies, startup companies within our organization, and really having that great internship aspect between Eastern Michigan and Spark as well. So I will be one of the main point of contacts for setting this up within your agreements and also your invoicing going forward for anyone who's attending company-wise or an internship-wise, as well as our new data analyst position, Lauren DeVries, who will be meeting all of you soon as she starts to walk in my footsteps and learning this new clinic within herself this going forward.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in that Jennifer brings up the stats, and we did do a study a couple of years ago for our fifth clinic, and looking back over all past clinics, and 84% of interns do stay in Southeast Michigan. And that largely has to do with how we recruit. And then we have roughly 70% either go on in digital marketing or working in a high-tech field. And so, between those two stats, we're very satisfied. I'll mention also that we take roughly 50 to 66% of our students from Eastern, but the rest come from other institutions, either in Southeast Michigan or they are students who have journeyed outside of Southeast Michigan to some academic institution, and they're coming home for the summer. Okay, and so I think that that's part of our success there in getting the 84% who stay in Southeast Michigan, because they're in fact trying to stay in Southeast Michigan already, and we're just kind of showing them ways they can do it. Okay, so now we'll slip over to talking about the clinic experience led by Sam Kinsler, and then with Eric Harp chiming in and our group of panelists.
Okay, thank you. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Sam Kinsler. I am one of the field managers here at the Center for Digital Engagement. Today, we are joined by Dave Morin, who is the CEO of Impelia, and Don Verbreggi, who is also a CEO at Jotful. They're just here to kind of share their company perspective within the summer clinic. And then also to Kylie Gilligan, who was last year's former intern, to also share her experience. As Bud mentioned, we do have Eric here. He'll be our question wrangler, so please feel free to ask any questions for the companies as well as Kylie as well too, and we can hopefully get those answered. To start off, we'll start with Don and Dave about their companies. So can you guys just kind of share a little bit about yourselves and the company that you work for? We can start with Dave.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Dave Morin. So I've been in the entrepreneurial world in Ann Arbor for quite a number of years now. And current company is Impelia. And what we do is we apply analytics to the data taken from body-worn sensors to help athletes and patients of sports medicine physicians understand this data and make it useful. So we do things like help build resiliency, improve performance, and try to minimize injury.
And then Don.
My name is Don Verbreggi, and I'm the founder and CEO of Jotful. What we do is we're a software company that makes and manages websites for micro businesses. So typically companies with 5 or fewer employees and many, many self-employed people. We have about 5 employees, just to give you an idea of the size of our company if you're thinking about hosting an internship. And we've been participating with the Digital Summer Clinic for the last 2 years. So we're really excited about that.
Awesome, great. Now, can you explain to us how you both became involved with the Digital Summer Clinic? We can start with Dawn.
I saw that question, and to be honest, I don't remember. It was 2 years ago. Somebody introduced me to Bud, and I thought it was a phenomenal opportunity. Obviously, we've done it the last couple of years, so I'm really happy to be involved, even though I'm not entirely sure how we first heard about it.
Sure, and I've known Bud since, gosh, 2005, 2006. And I think it was 3 years ago that Bud, I think you reached out to me about this program, and we've used interns in some sort of company I've been involved with for at least 3 years.
Well,
Yeah,
wonderful.
if
Go
I
ahead.
recall, Dave, I think Mountain Pass may have been the first of your companies that we put interns with.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a quick question from Lexi Morgan, who asks, what range of skills do the interns generally focus on in their experience? I was wondering if you could share between both of your companies. So maybe start with you, Dave.
Sure. So we've actually used quite a wide range of them. We've used more on the marketing side to help us, everything from developing a very nice system within HubSpot to do lead capture, to setting up Google Analytics, to building marketing campaigns for us, to be honest, and helping us through that. Last year at Impelia, we used a couple data scientist students, including Bud's son, to help us do data analytics on our data. And they actually developed new insights for us in the process.
Right.
So over the course of the 2 years that we've had interns, the projects have been really different. There have been some things that have been common. So generally speaking, our projects have been very entrepreneurial. So they haven't been so much about, we figured something out, now can you replicate it? And much more about, can you find a way to make this work? Is this something that could work for our business? We've been more focused on content and offers from a marketing perspective, as opposed to technology or data analysis. I could talk a little bit about the projects from the 2 years. So the first year, we had a very discrete project, one big project that lasted the whole summer. And we were really focused on figuring out how we could build an ecosystem around our product. So logo designers, content marketers, SEO experts, all these kinds of people who provide all these tangential or ancillary services for our customers. We wanted to build an ecosystem so we can make referrals out to them and they can make referrals into us. And over the course of the summer, the team started by just sending emails, like cold emails, and just try to figure out what kind of language was working and which audience was working and who was participating in the ecosystem. And by the time they left at the end of the summer, we had about 100 people in our ecosystem, but the project that they did gave us the groundwork we needed to really begin to scale it. And then we were able to scale it from 100 to 1,300 over the next couple of months, based on the groundwork they did in testing language and testing audiences. And then in the second year, we focused a lot more on social media marketing. So here are platforms that we're really well versed in. Is there something we can take from these platforms and apply them to another platform? Are there other places we should be? Are there other places where our audiences are? And I would say that project felt a little bit more like integrating with our general marketing as opposed to being one specific standalone project. I'm not sure it was as beneficial to them as the standalone project. And maybe Dave can speak a little bit about that as well, like sort of the idea of just integrating them into your business versus giving them one very specific project.
Yeah, well, actually, last year was interesting. So we went into it with a specific project where we had started working with a new data set and we needed to apply some visualization to it and understand it. I thought that was enough, and they solved it in 2 weeks. So we're like, okay, now what do we do? And so we just kept iterating. And then we got to the point where we said, you know what, let's just open this book up and say, you tell me what you're seeing in this data and what you understand of it. And it actually created some new insights for us, which was very, very cool.
All right, thank you for sharing, and thank you, Lexi, for asking.
Hey, I'll throw in a couple of additional examples in there. We have also had interns who do things like come in and help you work on your web front end. And I was just interfacing with Eric Myslowski from Moxie Tech, one of our companies last summer, who's interested in coming back. And he actually kept his software developer intern, who was doing various front end things for Moxie Tech, kept him employed throughout the year. His name is Fernando Borquez. And so we have had that also, although that is, if we hire somebody who's going to be doing various kinds of development, it is very typically around your web presence and user experience in your web presence.
All right, and then moving on to the next question. So we kind of talked about the projects incorporated within the company and the intern, but also too, we kind of want to understand what kind of value your company gives to the interns to make a successful career development. So we can start with Dave of how your company kind of helped carve the path for interns, or what other successful like advice you gave to your interns.
Yeah, I mean, I like to start with understanding their career goals and making sure the work aligns to it. I like to invest the time to help them understand my business, not just give them a project, because I want them to have the context of it. I don't mind challenging them a bit in these projects. As I talked about last year with the data stuff, and then the prior year, and that was Lexi, who helped us, who took us way farther than we thought with a marketing campaign. Just giving them the room to experiment, test, learn, I think really helps their career also.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. We were definitely an open book. We have bi-weekly all hands meetings where we just lay out all of our financials, and we invited our interns to those as well. So they certainly knew everything that was going on in our business. And I think that that's really beneficial to them. Because we had them for these 2 years. The first year was on site and the second year was remote. So we had sort of a different experience those 2 years. And one thing I noticed was around this mentoring piece in particular, because the second year when we were all remote, I found that almost all of the communications they had with their company were with me, because I was sort of the mentor manager for them. And I think that they really missed out on having the experience of talking to everybody else at the company that they had the previous year when they were on site and could just physically mingle. So if we do it again, if we're lucky enough to be able to do it again, and we're doing it remotely, I mean, that's something that I would really focus on, is making sure they have an opportunity to spend more time with everybody else at the company, because that way they're learning about stuff outside of marketing, and they're also just really connecting what they do to the business generally. And yeah, I agree that I definitely talk to them about their career goals. One of our interns in the first year went on to pursue an MBA. So he and I had a very long lunch talking about MBA programs and this kind of thing. So anything you can do to help them out is, really beneficial.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
and I'll just throw in there regarding the remote experience. What we found is we think the cohort meeting, the part where we go through and coach people, actually works better in a remote setting because the transitions in between teams presenting goes better. And then we use Slack as a back channel so multiple people can be feeding back to them during their presentation. But as Don pointed out, um, you miss that casual contact, which is one reason why we really like to bring the all hands meeting back in face to face mode, because that would allow for that. And when we've done remote internships in the past, pre pandemic, they have always included face to face part, even if people were spending a big part of their time remote. So just speaking to that.
And then last question for you guys. Can you provide any successful tips for prospective companies who may be entering their first time within the clinic, just to kind of help delegate certain projects or communications aspect between the intern and the benefit of the company? We can start with Dawn.
Yeah. So from my perspective, the most important thing to remember is that these are college students. So keep that in mind when you're determining not only what you assign them, but also how they're going to interact with your team and the level of mentoring that they're going to need from you. They're going to need quite a lot of mentoring from you, even though they're very, very well versed in remote communications. And we found that all of our interns have been very entrepreneurial and very proactive, and they will come up with things, and they will bring them up to you, and they have not been fearful and all of that. The truth is they just don't have a lot of work experience yet. And so they really lean on you to help provide structure, help them understand how to prioritize the things that are on their desk, and what the impact each of those things has for your business. So I think that there's definitely more mentoring that's involved, but that's expected for college students.
Yeah, that's great. And I think the more you give, the more you get out of the intern. So the more you can spend time with them, communicate, and just talk to them, it just always paid dividends for me. Giving them some room to fail a bit. As Don said, I think they're learning how to structure a day. I think some of them are a little overwhelmed and afraid to ask questions at first because they don't want to look dumb. So if you can get that off the table right away, that helps tremendously. And then you'll every time I've just watched the maturity of that over the course, by the end, boy, they're storming, and it's really fun to watch.
Yep.
And I'll bring up that this is what Dave and Don are mentioning is one of the things we really work with them on. And so one of the things that always surprises me when they're in the cohort meetings with us, they tend to let their hair down. Okay, and so we hear about what's going on, and then I will encourage them to go back and say, well, have you brought this up with the company? You're trying to figure out how to prioritize this or that. Have you brought it up? And then maybe they haven't, to be honest with you. And then how would you bring it up? And because they're worried about offending you potentially, and they're worried about looking dumb, and they all sort of wonder, how do I deal with this? Because it is one of their early experiences. Okay. Now, what always amazes me is these seem like, when we interview them, they seem like very capable people, and in fact, they are for their age. And when they come back and they've gone on and they've gotten some great job, and they come back and we have them on and they say, well, it was really the thing that helped me the most was the mentoring sessions or the all hands meetings, because I was able to get over my fear of doing this. Whereas, when we had been interacting with them, they seem to have all these great ideas. So yes, key point is and I'm glad to hear Don and Dave say this is you're going to be, these are capable folks. They will do good things for your companies, but yes, they're early on. They're going to need for you to help them structure, particularly if there's a lot of different things that start to go on at once. Where should I really be focusing my time?
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for both sharing your perspective on the internship. Moving on to the intern side of things, Kylie, can you please tell us or introduce yourself and then tell us what company you worked for and what you're doing currently?
Sure. So my name is Kylie Gilligan. I am one of the field managers at the Center for Digital Engagement, and I was a former intern, or am a former intern. I was involved in last year's summer clinic, and I worked for a company called Project Synergy, which offered a cloud-based platform for those in the automotive industry who were entering the pre-production phase or prototype management. So they offered a system that was kind of similar to Asana or Trello, but more geared towards those in the automotive industry, just to keep track of all of those moving parts and making sure everything was on track and all their deliverables would be ready in time for their clients. So right now, I am currently finishing up my degree at Eastern Michigan University. I study public relations. And in addition to working at the CDE, I'm also working for Tech Stack, which was a company involved last year in the summer clinic. I was not an intern of theirs. However, they needed someone moving forward during the school year. So Bud suggested I connect with them. So I've been working with them since August. And I am also a podcast writer for the Eastern Echoes newspaper.
Awesome. And that's just like another great example of how interns kind of get pulled from other jobs or companies just to kind of elaborate their skills even further. So again, asking you, what sparked your interest in applying for the Digital Summer Clinic last year?
Sure. So, as Bud mentioned, one of our mentors, Jamie, she is a PR professor. So, I've had many classes with her, and I heard her talk about the summer clinic fairly often. And it immediately sparked my interest. I'd never heard of an internship that kind of matched you with a company based on your skills and your interests. So, that's what initially kind of piqued my interest, just as it seemed really unique. And I was also in the midst of trying to find an internship and kind of scrambling because obviously, early March, everything suddenly went remote and all of a sudden internships were very scarce. So I was planning on applying anyway. So it just kind of felt like things fell into place perfectly.
Awesome. And then can you share with us a little bit about certain projects that you were assigned at your company?
Sure. So, as a PR major, a lot of my assignments with Project Synergy were communication based. In the internship, you are working in a pair. So, the person I was working with, Justin, was a marketing major. So, we collaborated a lot. All of our projects, we worked in tandem. I know sometimes with interns, people work on different things, but because our skills were so similar, and he had skills in areas I didn't, and vice versa, we worked collaboratively on their branding, their communication. And then our biggest project was interviewing clients of theirs to use as testimonials on their website and social media.
Alrighty. And then last question to end your experience. How has the clinic helped you in the current role today, or what have you gained from the clinic?
Oh gosh, I gained a lot from the clinic. In addition to 2 jobs, I gained a lot of professional experience that I was lacking. I worked a lot in customer service, but I hadn't worked kind of in PR and communication, which is what I want to do. So it was really nice to finally kind of get my feet wet and apply those skills that I'd learned in class before. And then additionally, I just gained a lot of confidence. As Bud mentioned, a lot of the interns mentioned the cohort meetings and interacting with mentors. It was really nice to just have people to bounce ideas off of. And if there were any challenges I was facing, I gained a lot of confidence in going into those challenges and knowing that I could solve problems, just working collaboratively with others.
Awesome. Thank you. Eric, do we have any other questions for Kylie or the companies so far?
Not right now, but I appreciate them for sharing their experiences and providing the insight of not just from the intern perspective, but what it actually looked like joining the companies. So thanks so much.
Great. Okay, so as has been made clear by our panelists from multiple perspectives, um, interns are often very early in their careers. Now, I estimate that probably somewhere, if you look at any given intern class of 48, then you're going to find 80% of them, so roughly 40 or so, are 25 or younger. And sort of the sweet spot seems to be 21 to 25 in terms of intern age. So that gives you an idea. These are people who are early on, they're getting done with their undergraduate degrees. The other 20%, we have people who are doing master's degrees, and we get a few of those. We had a person doing her master's degree, 2 people actually at the School of Information at U of M who were completing master's degrees last year. We also had a person completing her MBA degree at Eastern. And then, we'll do things like we'll have vets, military veterans, coming on board who have sometimes had extensive experience leading platoons of people, and that's somewhere roughly on the order of 15 to 20 people. But they did that when they were 18 to 28, and now they're back in school. So this is somebody who brings more to the table. But yes, most are very early in their careers. We have a wide range of majors, and when we're talking to you in interviews, what we're trying to understand is, okay, we have this wide range of majors. It tends to center a lot in communications and marketing, but we get plenty of data people. We get people who want to do user experience, which is sort of the new black in marketing. And then we also have computer science folks. And in fact, one of the people, Dave referred to him as a data scientist, but he's actually a computer science major who has worked worked for Dave last summer and then has been working in EMU web operations, and so have some significant prior internships that kind of help them come up with ideas and know a little bit tactically what to do. And we have a fair number of business majors. I say a plurality. It's not necessarily the majority. We pull from across the different universities that we recruit at, and they are unsure of themselves. And I think everybody kind of brought that up. And we try to empower them to be effective. And I think we don't get our issue is actually mostly that with interns. The problem that we try to select them so that that will be the problem that we have to work on, not that they run off and get distracted and then suddenly they're not trying to apply themselves. It's more I'm I need somebody to kind of reassure me that I'm doing the right thing. Okay, this is what we show as we're recruiting them. This is our banner. 48 interns, 24 high-tech companies. The now updated 1566 per hour, which is actually, as it turns out, critical since we're being funded through Spark, and we want to show we are in compliance with their pay regulations. I find that if I advertise this at our old rate from last year, 15.51 an hour, I still get people who are interested. But I think it's kind of more of a demonstrating we're in compliance issues. So it's 1566, 9 weeks, 5 mentors. And how do you participate as a company? Sign up for an interview. Obviously, if you're an incubator client, and so if you're an incubator client, then you're able to get Spark to pick up the tab, and Nick and his team. I believe DeVries is somebody DeVries. She's actually in the audience. Lauren DeVries, maybe, are going to help you figure out how to get that benefit. But the key part, sign up for an interview. If you have any questions as a company, companies email me all the time. Feel free to email me. And we'll go on from this and just make sure there's not any additional questions that people have, which we're happy to answer.
I can add something there, Bud. This is Nick
Sure.
from Ann Arbor Spark. It is open to Spark startups and clients that have worked with us in the past within accessing of LDFA funds, and some that have not, but are open to the program after interviewing with you to move forward. Those who do not qualify for LDFA funds, we can talk further about the ins and outs of what that would include on a payment side for your company with taking on a couple of DEC interns. But it is pretty much open to a lot of Spark current clients.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any final words? Well, look, we look forward to seeing you all in interviews, and we appreciate you coming out today. And we think we're going to have another great crop of interns for another great clinic this year, with hopefully closing out the pandemic being part of what happens this summer. So thanks so much. And, we look forward to interacting.